Hello here. Today we have Sarah McDugal with us. I'm going to give a few minutes and let everybody kind of jump on and connect. If you want to drop in the comments where you are watching from, I am here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'll let Sarah introduce herself and tell you where she is.
I am in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it is a lovely autumn day. My goodness, the weather has been amazing. I have to say, I do not miss the year-round oppressive heat of Florida at all. This is my second 2.5 kind of winters up here after living in Florida for several years. And oh my goodness, I am just in love with the change of the seasons and the different weather. I like it so much.
Yes, it's
Ooh, we have
beautiful there.
California popping in. I see. That's really awesome,
California.
guys. And I'm looking here on my Facebook page or on your Facebook page so that I can share it as well. I'm waiting to see it pop up. Here we are. All right.
Yes, I was in the mountains this past weekend with my child, and the weather hit like 45 degrees at night. So perfect. And like we're glamping, so it's like so nice. Oh, there's another person. Oh, that's you. I was like, oh, there's another person from Tennessee. And I'm like, oh,
That's it.
it's you.
It's me.
um, I'll put where I'm from.
Oh,
Oh,
Texas.
restream.
All right, and I just shared it. Hey, girls, if you're ladies, girls, I say girls, you know what? I'm in my 40s and I still think of all of us as girls, right?
Oh, I do too. Yes. Yes. I have
I don't
written
mean
about
that
that before.
badly.
And people are like, they're like, you should address people as ladies in your writing. I'm like, sorry. I just say girls.
I know, right? But I was just going to say, if you are watching this right now, oh, there's another Tennessee, and you want to hit
Yeah.
share. This is the perfect time to share so that others can kind of join in with us, and it also does a great job of telling Facebook that people might be interested in this, so it kind of pushes it out farther if y'all hit share and send it
Yes.
on over to your own pages too. I'm excited to be here with you, Lauren. We've both been like
Yes.
sick this summer after the retreat, and then everybody
Yes.
came back and like just hunkered down to get summer work done and everything. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like, I know I was out sick forever, and you've been sick.
Yeah.
It's kind of bouncing back now, slowly.
Yes. I feel like it's been a busy season. So I'm so glad we finally get to have you back and connect. We've been praying for you at Called to Peace
Thank
Ministries.
you.
And I know many people here have. If you aren't aware, Sarah had COVID really bad and
Yeah, really bad.
almost died a couple times. And so God's like, I am not done with her yet. So Jesus won.
Yes, yes. Now we just need to keep praying and moving forward, and
Hmm.
we are here for a purpose.
Yes, I feel like Satan like definitely has been more attacking on the DV community, just kind of like trying to silence people and going after it because this is a huge battle that we are engaging in, and Satan hates it because he doesn't want any of us to be free, and he enjoys us being in bondage, and it's so yeah. Keep everybody in your prayers, definitely, and everybody keep standing strong and brave and bold in the truth that you are called to, and knowing that God is for you and He is fighting this battle.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. That's right. Well, anytime we follow what Jesus said to bind up the brokenhearted and to loose the chains that keep people in bondage and slavery and to bring healing, we are working against evil. Truly, we're working
hmm
directly against evil and the forces of darkness. And I believe that there is an overwhelming conflict between good and evil. I also have complete and total peace that Jesus wins. He's already won.
yes,
But in the meantime, we're kind of caught in the crossfire. There's a world that's full of evil out there, and a lot of us get hurt, and our kids get hurt, and our friends.
hmm
And there's so much that we can still do to bring healing where evil has brought brokenness. And
yes,
evil doesn't want that to happen.
no.
So anyway, but we've got some good stuff to talk about today.
We do. And this is really fun because I do not think we've ever had you on Call to Peace to talk about this subject before. Like,
I don't think so.
um, so you and I connected before, and I've talked with you before, I think on your page with Nicole Stania, and other
Mhm.
people about children and helping them heal. And you have a whole Facebook page and ministry of helping women process through the effects of domestic abuse on them and their children and being able to rebuild that relationship. And so it's hugely impactful. It's a big part of healing people from domestic abuse is children impacted by it. It's just
Yeah,
no way around it. You cannot put a child through domestic abuse. Even they show in pregnancy, even if you
right.
are just pregnant with a child and you experience domestic abuse, that child's neurons will be wired differently. And it's almost like parenting a special needs child in a certain extent, dealing with the trauma and the abuse from it for a lot of people. So today we want to talk about that and be able to equip women to be able to not only thrive themselves after domestic abuse, but be able to help their children thrive as well.
Yeah,
And earlier this week we addressed when you feel isolated and you're completely pit against your children and that happens and how to approach that. But today we're going to talk about going more into that and talk about how do you rebuild? How do you set boundaries? How do you teach them right and wrong behavior and how to set boundaries themselves and not and realize stay out of our trauma. So we're not parenting from trauma, but parenting from a place of peace and love. And so, yeah, I'm excited to talk about that.
yeah. Well, I think there's so much that we can learn to do that will help empower the next generation. I had
Hmm.
absolutely wonderful parents, but they simply didn't know how to teach me what to look for or how to avoid certain red flags. If it wasn't just bluntly in your face, they weren't equipped to give me that information. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of women in our generation feel that way, right? Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
why didn't I know this 20 years ago? Why did nobody ever tell me?" Of course, we also, if you're in the, excuse me, guys, I still have lung stuff and I get all junky sometimes. But if you grew up in any of the purity culture, evangelical, um, Christian dating kind of things, if you grew up reading books by Elizabeth Elliot, if you grew up reading Every Young Man's Battle or Every Young Woman's Battle, if you grew up
Hmm.
reading Passion and Purity or I Kissed Dating Goodbye or any of these, When God Writes Your Love Story, all of these books that were central to purity culture, even if your parents were doing a really great job and you lived in a home that was not abusive at all, you were still getting messages that functioned to keep you in abusive relationships and to look for a partner whose definition of godly male leadership actually hinged on power and control, right?
Yes, I can agree with that.
So, like, if you were told as a young girl, look for the boys who are the leaders, the ones who are upfront, the ones who are really, really active, the ones who are really, really, like the dominant personality, the ones who are the charismatic, outgoing, all these things, you were
Hmm.
really being taught to look for a guy who isn't necessarily building his life on the fruit of the spirit, but is building his life on taking domination and control over other people to force them to think and believe and cooperate with things the way he sees in his
Hmm.
cultural context that things need to be done. So a strong leader. I want someone who's a strong leader. Well, that
Yes.
we defined that as a dominant patriarchal
Hmm.
thing instead of saying, "Oh, I want to look for a guy who's loving, kind, gentle, patient, good, faithful, self-controlled, the fruit of the spirit."
Hmm.
So when our relationships didn't have um, when we were entering into relationships, we didn't have a list of red flags to look for, and we didn't know what gaslighting was or what manipulation was, and we might have realized we feel something is wrong, but we can't put our finger on it. We don't have the words for it. We don't have the vocabulary. So the generation of women all my context for that is that the generation of women who are right now in the domestic violence advocacy community, in the abuse recovery and trauma recovery community, we have an opportunity to give our kids the tools, or at least some of them, that we wished we had 25, 30, 35 years ago, depending on what generation you're in, and equip our children and grandchildren to be wiser. Now, does that mean that they are guaranteed to avoid all abusive relationships? Probably not. We have any number, if you have a family with 8 kids, you're going to have some kids in that who learn by watching others. You're going to have some kids who are content to not do it because mommy said no and it's a bad idea. And you're going to have some kids who are absolutely pathologically committed to doing primary research, and they've got to go and screw it up themselves in order to figure out that fire will burn you. So, but we can still give our children tools and hope they stay. It doesn't mean we can control them to make them do better, but we can give them things to work with. And so, when we are going through either living in an unhealthy relationship and an abusive system, whether that's church or marriage or family or whatever, or we have escaped that and we are now rebuilding, we can do specific things that will help our children better recognize unhealthy things, unhealthy dynamics, abusive systems around them. A lot of moms ask things like, well, how do I teach my children to recognize abuse tactics without bad-mouthing my ex, or without trash talking a really toxic grandma, or without pointing out someone that we also love and care about, even if they're a really unhealthy person in our family or friendship network? Well, that's a good question, because it doesn't usually serve well to just point out people or individuals that are really damaging to others. It doesn't help your relationship with your kids, and it doesn't help your kids actually have the tools to discern in the future in other situations either, if you just point out a person who is behaving badly. What's much, much wiser and more equipping to our kids is if we teach them to recognize patterns of behavior, and to have terminology for recognizing that behavior. And that can be done in the abstract for kids as young as 4 or 5 years old. If your child is old enough to learn the names of body parts, this is my leg, this is my kneecap, this is my elbow, they can also learn that if I see you with cookie crumbs all over your face and one hand in the cookie jar, and you know that I've seen you and you tell me, no, I'm not, you are gaslighting me. That means you're telling me that what I saw isn't the truth. What I heard you say isn't the truth. That's manipulating because you're trying to get out of the consequences for the choice you actually made. So instead of just saying, that's bad, don't do that, give them the words. Now, it can also be the kind of thing like this morning, my daughter has a church function. She's 10. This weekend, she has a church function, and she was up early this morning with her pocket knife whittling a walking stick because it's an outdoor hiking kind of church function. And she wanted to stain her walking stick, and she wanted to take it along. And then I gave her some instructions about using the stain and this kind of thing. I'm happy for her to be doing this project. It's a great early morning project. She's sitting on the back porch in the foggy morning chill, and she's singing at the top of her lungs because that's what she likes to do when she's happy, by herself out there whittling a stick. Fabulous. And then she comes in and she says, you know what, I'm not going to take it after all. And I said, oh, why not? She says, well, it's not a very big stick, and the boys will probably taunt me and tell me that it wasn't a good enough stick to bring along for the hiking. And I plopped her down on the couch and I looked at her and I said, sweetie, if there is a good thing that you would like to do, and it's not an unhealthy thing, it's not a bad thing, and you would actually like to do it, do not ever let the opinion of a friend or a boy, the possibility that they might have a negative perception of how small your walking stick is, that's not a good enough reason to not take it along. Now, if you decide you don't want to take it, you don't want to carry it, you don't want to be responsible for it, fine, leave it at home. But we don't make decisions based on the possible reaction of someone else when there's actually nothing wrong with the decision we want to make. Now, if it's a conscience thing and maybe I shouldn't make this decision because it's possibly wrong, then we have a different scenario. But she's just wanting to do a good thing. I said, do we let the possible opinions of boys at church in your class keep you from doing something that's good and healthy that you would like to do? And she was like, no, we do not. Like,
love it.
Because if you change your mind based on the fact that they might possibly think your stick is puny or that they might make fun of it, then you are letting them what? Manipulate, control you, and isolate you. You are letting them dictate and have power and control over your decision because they might possibly make fun. If they make fun of you, that is their problem. We do not make our decisions dictated on the possible reactions of boys. So she has this vocabulary. We've been doing this for years. And it's a completely innocent situation. It has nothing to do with anyone who is actually abusive, actually cruel, or anything. But it's teaching her to see control for what it is. And to see that she was internalizing the possibility of being, to allow them to control herself when they weren't even actively controlling her. She was taking it on herself, internalizing that. No. Now, women do that to ourselves a lot.
Yes.
Right? We allow the possibility of someone's disregard on good and healthy things to trim down the margins of what we allow our own identity to be, to shrink ourselves. And it starts as young as 10 years old. Mm-hmm. But the more we are able to keep our kids empowered to recognize that and to push back on that with a clean and healthy conscience, the more we are giving them the strength to stand up against people who will treat them poorly.
Yes, absolutely. And you're making them think for themselves too. Like, instead of just being like, that's not right, they shouldn't make fun of you, that's so mean. Like, that's just internalizing they're mean versus, oh, all that behavior, and it's connecting those neurons. So later on in life, when they see those things, they're like, oh, yes, I'm making that choice, and I'm not going to let you control me or manipulate me, and I'm going to be me and who God created me to be and enjoy what I enjoy, versus telling them how to think.
Yes. So what we want to do is let go of the black and white. Well, that's bad. Don't do it. That's bad. And say, okay, well, why is that bad? Why is that approach unhealthy? Is that approach helping your friend to think for themselves and choose what is right for themselves? Or is that just making them go along with the crowd? What's their motivation for doing that? Is it because they want to not be made fun of? Or is it because that's something they're really passionate about doing? If
Right.
you have a kid who likes to play chess and he's scared to let anyone know that he plays chess because all of his friends are into sports, then what's the motivation for that? Why is he
Wow.
shrinking his identity?
He fears more of what they think than what he desires. And that's setting him up for to be abused, because you're used to denying yourself, which is what they do in abusers. You deny your personhood and who you are to please another person. So, wow, that's yeah. And it's so easy to be like, well, that's who God made you. Love it, do it, instead of just being like, let's catch this and think through this and stop this thought process. Is kind of like not conforming ourselves to the world, but being transformed in the mind by renewing ourselves to think as as God thinks. Like, God created us to enjoy chess. God created us to do this. He did not create us to fear men and to not be who we are and shrink back with who we are.
Yep.
So I love that.
So the litmus test is, am I doing this or not doing this for healthy, conscientious reasons? Or am I
Mm-hmm.
doing this or not doing this because of the potential or the reality of someone else's control over me? Now, as your kids get a little older, then you're able to kind of parse that out a little bit more and dissect it. Okay. That if I am choosing not to do this because of someone else's opinion, is my motivation because it's something that they are very sensitive to? Or let's say my friend has a dairy allergy and they really
Mm-hmm.
love buttermilk. So I'm going to be polite and not drink buttermilk in front of them because they can't have it because it's a health
Yes.
risk to them. That
Right.
tearing down my identity, that's me having kind manners. I'm doing something kind for the other person. And when they're not here, I'll drink all the buttermilk I want. But
Yes.
so as our children get a little more mature, we can help them kind of decipher between when are we being polite and kind by denying ourselves something we want, and when are we motivated by fear of someone else's opinion to deny ourselves something we want, because those two are
Mm-hmm.
very different things. There's plenty of things. I don't bring home chocolate cake and eat it in front of my kids unless I plan to share a piece with them, because that's just horrid. But I'm not letting my children control me so that I never eat chocolate cake anymore. Does that make sense?
Right.
So
Yes.
when we are talking about helping our children have the tools, we can start with the basics. This
Mm-hmm.
is manipulation. This is gaslighting. This is deception. My friends over at Psalm 82 Initiative have a brilliant rubric, like a chart breakdown. The 4 tools of every abuser are isolation,
Mm-hmm.
deflection, manipulation, and intimidation. So if you
Yes.
teach your children, is this situation isolating you from somebody you really appreciate and like and respect and admire? Is this situation taking you away from friends that you really value the relationship with? Is this situation deflecting responsibility? Is someone blaming you for something that is really their responsibility? Or if you are deflecting and saying, that is not my problem, even though you're the one who kind of instigated the situation and you're refusing to take your own responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, like with my kids, we are super blunt. You know what? You're deflecting right now instead of just saying, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And that's an abuse tactic. And I know you don't want to grow up like that. So don't do it to me. Don't do it to your siblings. Don't do it to your grandparents. Don't do it to your friends. You need to take responsibility for things you have done.
Yes.
You don't have to point out what someone else in your life, especially if you've escaped a domestic violence situation, has done badly. You just have to teach them to see the tools, and the patterns. As they mature, they will figure out on their own which situations fit. And there will probably be a season where they test out flipping it back on you when you hold limits. And then they say, well, you're just so controlling and you're trying to manipulate me because you won't let me go do what I want. And then you will have to have a conversation with them because they are immature and they are still learning self-regulation. And you say, no, when I am doing something good and healthy for you because you can't control yourself yet, that's actually my God-given job as a parent.
Yes, I love that smile at the end. It's like, so.
Because
That's awesome.
if I didn't love you, I would let you do whatever the heck you wanted without helping you stop and think about it. But I'm here in the trenches allowing you to push back at me because I do love you. And I'm not going anywhere. You are stuck with me because I love you that
Yes.
much.
Yes.
I see some questions. Do we want to take some questions? I know we're
Yes, sure. And then I see one question here about if it's too late. It's not. We addressed a lot of that. We can talk about a little bit here. On Monday night, we did an interview with Tuesday, excuse me, with El Renee as well. And
awesome.
she addressed that. Yes, 100%. Because there's a lot of parents out there that get very alienated from, I guess you would call it alienated, whatever you want to call it, separated from their kids. Their kids are pit against them, do not have anything
Right.
to do with them.
I'm
It's not
really
too late.
cautious about using the word alienation, but
Yes, I am too.
because it's really
Yeah.
weaponized badly. But there are absolutely times when the abusive parent poisons and triangulates a child against the protective parent.
Yes, 100%. And it happens. And yeah.
In that kind of situation, I know if El Renee has already addressed this, that's great. Go check out that video. But my one sentence response would kind of be that if your influence as the healthy parent has been really compromised in the fallout, focus as much as you can, especially if it's an child, focus as much as you can on things that build connection and leave the conflict things as much as possible off the table while you do everything you can to just build connection. And that may mean setting aside some things that are important to you and just doing fun things with your child. Get off your phone and read a book together, or go to the park together, or plan an activity that's related to one of their interests, just to maintain the connection.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say too, like, don't give up. And sometimes,
Yes,
I don't know where she's at in that situation. I know some parents who have had their kids triangulated against them, and they have very little contact with their kids, like to the point they only can send text messages and cards. So, in the video, we address that further, but just keep pursuing them and don't give up. But when you do have that moment of connection, do not make it about their behavior. Do not make it about anything else, but just make it about your love for them. And at this point, it's all about rebuilding trust and letting them know that you are safe. And that it's not just being like, I am safe, and this is not true, but demonstrating that via your life repeatedly. And don't give up.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys follow the No Idea What I'm Doing daddy blog.
No, but that sounds interesting.
Oh my goodness. Check out the No Idea What I'm Doing daddy blog on Facebook, his Facebook page, and some of his books are fantastic. He's a trauma survivor who has built a life with a strong, persevering family and a loving marriage after a childhood of abandonment and trauma. And he shares from a guy's perspective what building his family into the family he wished he had looks like. And it's just absolutely precious. But he posted just the other day something about his teenage son going through a really major rough patch. And he took him out for pancakes. And he says, I'm not trying to control you when I tell you you actually have to get your homework done. That's because
Mm-hmm.
I care about you enough to be looking into your future and knowing that you're going to wish you had later. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're 35 and I'm an old man, I have every intention of still being here in your life and taking you out for pancakes on a random Sunday morning. I'm not going anywhere because I am in this for the long haul and I'm not ever going to abandon you. And he shares how his son responded and having those kind of conversations. Now, if you don't have a father in your family that is having those kind of conversations, you can still have that as a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I know things are confusing. There's a lot of stuff I can't tell you. I wish I was free to give you all the information, and I'm not, but I love you and I'm not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes, it just takes one strong parent, is what I have had therapists say over and over again. If you can just be the one strong parent that's healthy and show yourself grace too, something I just, my mind, like going through trauma and then parenting is really hard. It's very challenging, especially when there's triggers and all types of things. So make sure you're showing yourself grace and knowing that if you make a mistake, just be willing to say, you know what, I made a mistake. I got angry last night at my child, and I had to go
Oh,
back and
that's funny.
apologize.
Me too. And
Yes,
I
I
have to go
did. I was
apologize.
very tired. Not making a
Yeah.
deflection here, but I was a little tired, and something triggered me, and I got upset and just cried and was like, "This hurts me," you know. And so I didn't handle it correctly, and I was like, you know, I should have done this, and I should have handled it this way, but I didn't. I was wrong. And it's like being willing to go back and just apologize and say, you know what, I'm very sorry. I made a mistake, but letting them know it's okay. They're going to make mistakes too. You know,
Yes.
but giving each other grace.
Yes. Yeah. You're just sparking thoughts for me. I know we're about out of time, but I would love to end on that because that's a really
Mm-hmm.
positive, hope-filled thing. I think it's super important for trauma mamas to not feel like I now have to get this right.
Mm-hmm.
Your goal is to do better than you knew how
I
to do
love that.
before, and better
Yes.
than people did for you when they failed you. Your goal is not to get it perfect because you are dealing with undoing possibly generations of trauma, either passed down from the one side or the other or both. You are dealing
Mm-hmm.
with kids and family members who are individual humans that have their own set of likes and dislikes and character and personality and everything else. They are separate from you and they have all the feelings you have in the same spectrum that you have it, and you can't control all of those things. So getting it
Mm-hmm.
right is a choking bondage to let go of.
Yes.
And if you grew up in a perfection oriented faith community, it can be really hard to let go of that, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you desperately want to heal the wreckage of the past.
Absolutely.
Apologizing well and loving well is much more of a reasonable goal than getting it right all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You are human. You are guaranteed to screw up motherhood.
Yes.
And the
Love
really,
that.
you are guaranteed. And you know what?
You've
Your
got
kids,
permission from us. You can screw up motherhood. It's okay.
yeah, your kids are guaranteed to screw up their fatherhood and motherhood too, because we are sinful humans.
Yes.
None of us
Mm-hmm.
are going to be perfect parents, no matter how much we learn this side of heaven. And you are guaranteed to miss things. You are
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed to overlook things that your children will wish you had gotten right. And then they will try to get it right. And then their kids will tell them what they wish they had gotten right from their parents.
Yes.
And the generations keep going. But what our goal is to pass on more tools for critical thinking, for healthy analysis, for thoughtful understanding, to teach our children not to blindly follow anyone. Ever. God doesn't ask us
Absolutely.
to blindly follow him. He asks us to show faith and to be Bereans and go study it for ourselves and to be critical thinkers. So God doesn't
Yes.
even ask for blind following. Neither should we. And when you screw up, as you are guaranteed to do, one of the best ways that you can differentiate yourself from the abusive people in your family structure is to be willing to humble yourself and demonstrate apology, willingness to try, taking responsibility for when you lost your temper, for when you were tired and grumpy,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and saying, you know what? When you were defiant and disobedient last night, yes, you were wrong. And yes, it was my job to help correct you. But you know what? I did it in a really bad way. I failed you in how I needed to show you correction. And I'm sorry.
Wow.
Next time
That's so powerful.
I need to stop sooner. And you have permission if you see me getting to the point where it's going to hurt your feelings to say, Mom, can we pause this and come back to it? Mom, is our conversation getting too intense? You can ask me that. Now, if you're just deflecting and trying to get out of it, no, I'm not going to let you get away with it. But we can check each other if we're getting too heated, if we're getting carried away. We can help each other handle conflict well. And I guarantee you that if they have someone with narcissistic traits, if they have someone who is an abusive parent or grandparent or other primary relationship, that person is not going to be humbly apologizing. They are not going to be taking responsibility.
Never.
They are not going to be allowing the child to give them feedback and to put the brakes on if things are getting out of control. They are not going to be modeling humility and self-control and healthy apology. And that is one of the most powerful ways that you can differentiate as a healthy parent or a parent who is becoming healthy from the abusive parent without saying a word about the other parent.
Right. I love that. Yes, it's modeling difference.
Yes.
You know, that you are willing to admit when you're wrong, and that's a huge, huge piece of being a healthy adult, because you can't have any relationship if you cannot be willing to admit when you are wrong and take responsibility. And yeah, so I like ending. I like that note. Like yes, I feel encouraged. And it's
Good.
okay. We have tools to use with our kids, and when we fail, we will fail. When we can go back and humbly apologize and let them know where we were wrong and where we made a mistake. And they're going to need to learn to do the same when they're wrong too. And also, like, as something that's on my mind, like just hitting too, is also showing grace too, based on like what's going on throughout the day. Sometimes when your child is really tired, I know when I'm really tired and you've maybe been through something that's really emotional, just, I don't know, throwing it out there. Also be willing to show a little grace too, and like be able to point out like, hey, I can tell you're acting this way. Are you tired? Are you hungry? Like, and helping them understand and identify that can cause their responses too. Because now my daughter and I have a word, it's hangry. I'm
Yeah.
hangry. And I'll be like the same way. She'll be like, Mom, you're hangry. You know what I mean? And you can tell. She
Yeah.
actually asked me sometimes if I take my thyroid medicine. That's a different story. But anyway,
Well, there are actually
anyway, so
4 things. There's a great acronym for
yes,
that. HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If you're
yes.
dealing with hungry, angry, lonely, tired, if you've got low blood sugar, if you've had something else triggering you throughout the day, if you're feeling abandonment from a different relationship, if you're feeling exhausted, we are compromised. And we have to be able to recognize that in our kids. Last night, we wrapped up the disagreement, and then we pulled out a jokes app on our phones. We all piled up in the bed, and we ended the evening giggling until my kids were like snorting tears over stupid kid safe jokes.
Oh my
What,
gosh. I
what do
love
you
it.
call 4 bullfighters in quicksand?
I have no
Quattro
clue.
cinco. They thought that was hysterically funny. And we ended the night praying together, giggling together, and on a positive note. You can't expect your children to sleep well or function well if they end the day with everybody yelling at each other, or if they start the day being yelled at.
Yes.
Even if it means we need to have a discussion about this tomorrow, but right now, let's have a tickle fest, or let's wrestle on the floor, or let's sit down and look at joke zaps, or something, so that you can
Mm-hmm.
sleep well tonight and know we can solve the big issues tomorrow. I do see someone asking, if we didn't do anything wrong, then what? You may have done all the things right, but it's still usually really helpful to model humility. And if you can find something you could have done better, for example, you kept your cool, you didn't lose your temper, you stayed firm, you didn't let them manipulate you. But if you can own the fact that maybe you just didn't explain it very well, you know, maybe I should have
Yes.
explained it differently in a way that would have made sense to you better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should have brought it up at a different time when it was more something we had more time to deal with. So I'm sorry for whatever I did that triggered you, even if I really don't know what it was. I'd like to work on that if you're able to tell me or figure it out. And also, we still have to do XYZ. You're not giving up, you're not moving the boundary.
Mm-hmm.
You're not changing the expectation. Like, I don't know, they flipped out because you made them do dishes. You still have to do the dishes. That's part of us living together. But you know, maybe we need to have a board where we write it down on, so that you know ahead of time, it's in your mind. Maybe reminding you at the last minute doesn't work for your brain and you need a 5-minute warning. What are things we can do to avoid this conflict in the future and work together peaceably? And yes, you still have to do the chores.
I love that. I needed to hear that, because so many times, yes.
Well, it's not just your house, darling. It's mine too, and probably everyone else's.
Chores can be a battle.
I know. All right.
But it's for every kid. Well, yes. So you've given me a lot of great tools for myself today, and I'm like, I am feeling encouraged and inspired, and I hope everybody else is as well. If you want to drop in the comments, maybe something that really spoke to you today, or something that stood out to you, that would be great, and just encourage other people in ways that you're going to apply this or do something different. So I am definitely taking that about the chores. Need to be doing that one. That's a great idea, showing grace in that area.
Thank you for having me on today. It's been a good conversation. I really appreciate talking about this.
It has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope that this has been encouraging. I know it's been encouraging to a lot of other women as well. So thank you for your time and coming out here today. I'm so glad to reconnect with you. It's been since the retreat. So
I know, it's been like 5 or 6 months now. Crazy.
yes. And so hopefully we'll be having another retreat in the spring. So maybe we'll see you there.
But
We don't have any dates yet, but eventually we will. I will definitely keep you posted, since it's kind of near you in the mountains of North Carolina.
I know.
Oh, I love the mountains. Just, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Oh, fundraising. Yes, we are still in the middle of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we are around, trying to think where we were, 56,000 this morning. So we have about 48,000 to go. So if you want to keep donating, we would definitely appreciate that. Here at Call to Peace, we never turn anybody away from finances. I was talking to Naomi. She is our financial and intake coordinator, and the numbers are just skyrocketing right now with Call to Peace. It's kind of like she was saying, a fire hose let out since the retreat. So we are having we were averaging last month 30 requests for an advocate. This month, we're already at 26 on day of October 20th. So we're going to surpass that. And so each month, it's just the momentum is picking up. That's requests for advocates. Then we have about 30 requests each month as well for support groups. And then we have, additionally, we have around 15 to 20 churches that reach out to us, or church leaders that reach out to us a month. So you're talking a lot, and that stuff, we don't charge for Protect the Flock. We don't charge for advocacy. We don't charge for support groups. And not only that, we also offer financial assistance to these women. So if you're needing a first month's rent, if you're in a support group and have an advocate, or we've given cars, all types of things, trying to help these women get back on their feet and be able to start over. So all of that comes with a price, and we never want to turn any woman away because of finances. So if you feel compelled to give, please do. Even $25 adds up. Whatever you feel called to do, just be part of this ministry in some way or another, being the hands and feet of Jesus and letting them know that they are seen, and that you are seeing them and you're willing to help. So thank you so much for everybody that has donated, and we appreciate your partnership and support. Oh, it's your train.
Yes. I was sitting here thinking, oh, I wonder how much that comes through my microphone now. Yay. We got done before
I remember
the
that
train,
before. I love trains in the mountains of Tennessee.
It's lovely. Well, thank you guys very much for everything that you do.
Oh, well, thank you for all that you do. I'm so grateful for you and your strong voice, and that you're still here and you're advocating in so many ways. I follow you regularly and read your stuff. It's amazing. If y'all do not follow Sarah McDugal, jump on her Facebook and follow her. It's so thorough, your research of everything that you do to kind of like pick apart books or pick apart different things going on in society. Be willing to confront it
Reasons
and
I'm
go
so
at it
popular.
head on. Yes. Yeah, I love your cup too, by the way. She has a store.
Love you too,
She
Hannah.
sells that cup.
Yes.
Yes.
I love this. It's this mood metamorphosis. It's one of my domestic violence recovery and wild cups that we have at Wild. So anyway.
Well, thank you for joining us. Everybody have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.